Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic, and if you missed our last video, we were talking about the foibles of classic car ownership and when things go wrong, and things have gone very wrong lately, and the £200 engine is finally needing to be rebuilt. But I mean, it's been a good old unit. It's done over 20,000 miles in my ownership, which meant that I had to go and find something else. Now, in the last video, I talked all about that, but in short, I sourced my engine through MGOC Spares. You'll know them because I talk about them all the time when we're doing the MGC restoration videos, and they sourced me an engine from Ivor Searle, which is just behind it. We're going to show you the grand unveiling in this video. But first of all, we need to get this engine out. Now, usually when I do this with Kev, we don't have all the fanciness of the workshop, because you're probably looking around me and thinking, Steph, that is not Kev's workshop. And no, it's not, because as I discussed in my last video, I work during the week in a classic restoration business called ADO Restoration in Halifax. Again, all the details are in the description box below, so you can find it there. But they've let me use the workshop after hours, and they've also said they'll give me a helping hand today. So we're doing things slightly differently to how I would usually do it, which would be whip it out through the top. Paul, who's got a good eye for detail, is the expert man on the job today, helping us, aka leading the job. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this front panel off first of all, then it's the radiator. I mean, I've forgotten the order already, so it's a good job Paul's here. Then it's the air filter, the carb distributor, blah blah blah, all the rest of the bits. Then we hoik the engine out through the front, which is decidedly less stressful than trying to haul it over your head and out. And then we pop the new engine in. I am so excited for this. As I was saying to them earlier, I have never owned a brand new engine, and it's like all the Christmases have come at once, and I've certainly spent about as much as you would at Christmas as well, if not more. Anyway, let's crack on and get this done. Well, it's quite exciting to share this process with you. Now, it was a bit of a funny one because we were all so tired. We kind of forgot to say, well, you do this first, and then you do that first, and then you do this. So what I've done is, if you're watching this at home and you're thinking, Steph, I've had good fun watching this, but I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. Well, look, you're in luck, because if you go into the description box of this video, you'll be able to see a brief step-by-step on how you do everything, which hopefully will help demystify this process. Because here's the thing, as long as there's a few of you and you've got a bit of an instruction manual, I don't think this is beyond the capabilities of pretty much anyone who has done a few bits on their car. I think that everyone can have a good go at this, unlike brakes, which sometimes are a little bit scary. So remember, when you're doing this, you want to be draining all your liquids first. Now, I am going to say that I did something which perhaps I shouldn't have done, which was I pushed on with this job without putting any gloves on. Now, listen, a lot of you will say to me, Steph, I've gone through years in the industry and I've never worn gloves. But here's the thing, I did a lot this summer. I was messing around with my own car, I was doing various bits outside of work, and I came unstuck because I ended up with contact dermatitis across one hand, and it was so painful. So listen, if you can get away with not getting it and just put some cheap gloves on, do that. It is so much simpler. So once you've taken all the ancillaries off the engine, you need to be getting that engine out. And because I'm not at university anymore, using a washing line pole and hoiking things out with a decent back, and I'm now well over 30, I decided to use the sensible approach, especially as we're working in a garage as well. And we've used this engine crane. And there are two of us doing it because that's kind of what you're going to need to do this job as painlessly as possible. Now, if you are on your own, you might be able to do it on your own, but I always think that these things are better done in pairs. And we also had Ed, who was helping to film this, but also to be a bit of a spotter as well. And that's quite helpful, just because remember, everything you're working with here is kind of heavy, and you can end up hurting yourself if you don't take extra care. So let's hoik this engine out. Once you've got the old engine out, you want to just tackle it and get those last few bits off. The bits that are much easier to get to once the engine is out of the car. And again, we just kept it on the crane and we just worked with it like this. And obviously I did a bit as well. But I mean, look, my skill set is never going to be as good as the boys, and neither is my strength either. Anyway, I managed to get things with a little bit of help eventually off that engine. Whilst the engine is out of the engine bay, it's probably an obvious thing, but just check everything out. Now, of course, this car has been restored in recent years, so everything was fine and dandy for me. But I did give it a bit of a clean up because, well, you're going to reach areas that you're not going to usually reach. And it's a great time to just touch up any paint that's come loose too. Blimey, this is looking different to where we first started, with that sad little 3-cylinder number sitting inside the engine bay, and we are now so close to that Iversell engine going in. I'm very, very excited. But I do need to say a massive thank you to Paul and Ed, because they have really led tonight's project. I am knackered because we didn't get back from getting the Proton until nearly 2 a.m. and I was so tired. And I almost just felt like I just can't bring myself to be here. But they've both been so spirited and motivating as we go through the job that it's just been actually very fun. And I've learned quite a few different bits and pieces as we've gone through, mostly through doing it as a different process, because I've always done it lift out, leave the front panel on, whereas this time we've done it pull it out this way. And do you know what? If you are watching this and you're about to do this yourself, do it like this. It is so much easier. I much prefer doing it like this. I felt like we've been able to get further into the engine bay. You're not constantly leaning over, and you can get into all those hard to reach places. And when you lift the engine out, as you would have seen, it was just so much easier than when you're trying to get it over that front panel, not knock anything, not break anything. And I was really worried about those hockey sticks that surround the grille, but actually it turned out to be fine. Now, you may have noticed when we looked at that Iversell engine earlier that all the ancillaries are still to be put onto it. Well, the idea is that you take those off your original engine, so the engine that's in the car, and you put those onto the new engine. But what you may have noticed is that my fan is looking a little bit sad, and she was once gleaming yellow many, many moons ago, and is now looking a little bit rusty and tired. And it's always really let the engine bay down, but I've never really let it bother me, because I thought, well, it was a £200 engine and I'm just excited to be on adventures, and I barely lift the bonnet because she is such a reliable, brilliant car. But here's the thing, when you work in a classic car garage, there are sometimes perks to the job, and at ADO Restoration, they do powder coating, which means I am not putting that sad little fan back on, because I've got all these bits. Look at these. This is an absolute upgrade. Now, if you're doing this yourself and you're looking at your fan or parts of your engine thinking they're going to let the new unit down, you can contact ADO through the stuff in the description box below. And what happens is you send in your original parts for refurbishment. And I'm all about giving everything a new lease of life. I talk about this all the time, usually with clothes and homeware. And I try and do it with cars as much as possible as well. Like the doors on this are from a much earlier car, but they have been taken off another car. The engine came from a scrap car. I'm very big on reusing and refurbishing where you can. And also by getting bits like this refurbished, it just keeps the originality on the vehicle and it gives it a bit of a new lease of life. I feel like we've got so much rubbish out there in the world already, we don't need to create more of it. So you can see those at home. They look really snazzy. I'm excited to put those on. But that's where we find ourselves. Engine's out, bits and pieces are coming off. I thought it was going to be a bit of a slog because I'm so tired from going to get the Proton and stuff. But actually I've had just so much fun. We've been having a giggle all the way through. And Paul is working diligently behind us, and I can see that he's putting new spark plugs in. So we must be at a point now where we're almost ready to take this sad old unit off the lift and to put that one onto it. And I am so excited. Although I would say I'm buzzing, but I'm just at that point where you're so tired that there's nothing left inside of you. So I'm as excited as I can be in the circumstances. Right, fair bit more to do, but the light is at the end of the tunnel. Let's crack on. Now, a lot of people have asked what these red bungs are for and why you put them in. Remember, when the engine is travelling, debris and all the other rubbish can fall down inside. So this just protects all the bits and pieces, and it's vital that every single bung goes back in. Working as part of a team makes all this so much more fun. Now, you may notice that we have been voicing over sections, and that's because I get a little bit sweary when I'm working on cars, and also we have been making some jokes that perhaps aren't really appropriate for a family-friendly audience, but that's all part of the fun, as I'm sure many of you that work together with your friends or colleagues in garage settings will know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, let's talk about what's coming up next. First of all, I've been working on that, so I've been doing what I essentially refer to as redressing that engine. And if you remember, when we looked at that Ivor Searle engine earlier, it had all those little red bungs in all over. And the idea is that when you strip all the ancillaries off and put them onto the new engine, those bungs then have to transfer into the old engine to go back to Ivor Searle. So I've been doing all of that. And I realise that's the more simple bit, but look, when you've got two people that are specialists, why would you have them sticking the bungs in? You get them on the good stuff. So thank you so much, Ed and Paul, because they've been doing all the hard work, rebuilding and popping all those ancillaries back on to the new engine. And it's already starting to look, as you can see there at home, very smashing indeed. In terms of all the other bits and pieces that we're going to need, we have got this box. Now, I know back in the day on YouTube, you used to watch people do unboxing videos, usually with toys or cosmetics. I don't know if anybody still does that. But anyway, here we are. We're going to unbox all the bits we've got. First of all, and you can tell it has been a long couple of days because this clutch feels very heavy indeed. So we've got the turn that around for you at home. We've got the Borg & Beck clutch. We've got the air filter in that one. What have we got in this? We have got the water pump. Ooh. We've got the oil filter. We've got fan belt, thermostat, and the cap in the top of the rocker cover. It's at that point of the day where I've forgotten its real name. That's all in there as well, so that's great. Now, all of those bits I got from MGOC Spares, and I didn't really know what I was needing. So I just rang Chris and his team and said, what do you recommend buying? And they were so good. They just essentially held my hand all the way through the process and said, you're going to need all of this. And I just ordered it, and it was great. It took 5 minutes, and that's the kind of service I like, because sometimes when you're trying to work out, looking at a picture, am I going to need this, am I going to need that, and you're already short on time, services like that are an absolute godsend. And this might sound like a plug for MGOC Spares, and it is, because they have been amazing all the way through this process, and I feel so much less stressed because of them. So those are all the bits. Engines coming together. I can see Ed cleaning up something. And we've got that old engine almost ready to go off. So it's all looking a little bit closer to the finish line. Now this is where it starts to feel exciting, because I'm starting to screw all the bits onto the new engine. And remember, when you're doing this, use copper slip where you need to. And also we should probably talk about making sure all the bits and pieces you use are new. So anything you're putting onto this and you think, it's a bit of a consumable, things like clutches and stuff like that, you want to be putting a brand new one in, unless you've changed it in the last kind of few hundred miles. Because if you think about it, you're already going to have to hoik all this out next time you need to do a clutch or you need to change something. So you might as well just do it all now, because everything is out on the workbench. And spending a bit of time now doing all these bits and pieces is going to save you time later on. Although look, I do concur, it can get a bit painful when you're trying to do this all. However, if you talk to someone with a more modern engine and you say how little time it takes to do an A-series, they are always exceedingly jealous. So this is probably one of the least painful engine swaps you can do. Once we got all the basics into place, things like the clutch and a few other bits and pieces, we decided it was time to get this new unit into the car. And I was really excited, because the car itself is pretty shiny, and the old £200 scrap engine that I bought, and a lot of people ask me, by the way, why I bought it, and I bought it because I simply ran out of money when we were restoring the car, because I had loads of things to buy for the house. And whilst my restoration was definitely one of the more cost-effective ones, sometimes life just gets in the way and you have to make a few compromises. And the £200 engine was definitely one of my compromises. I should probably add as well, by the way, that it came with the gearbox. So I got the whole thing thrown in, and it has been bargain of the century, because that gearbox is still going strong. strong-ish, strong-ish. I could probably get a few more years out of it. But anyway, once you get that engine in, you want to start reattaching everything, and the boys were just cracking on with it. So realistically, I just got the camera and started filming it. But you can see everything getting set up there, and there she is in her full glory, the brand new engine, nicely nestled in her new engine bay. And doesn't she look grand? Well, we're back on day 2. Now, you might be wondering why we've taken a break in this. And here's the thing, we were really, really tired. And I've always found in life that the worst mistakes I ever make are when I'm tired and when I'm hungry. And I was both tired and hungry at the point the other day. And I thought, this is the toxic combination of things to go wrong. And I think we were all tired and hungry. So I thought, right, that's it for today. And you know what? That's the advice I would always give to people. If you're ever working on your car and you just feel like, oh, I'm just going to get this bit done, or try and rush yourself through, just stop, because the world's not going to end if you don't get your car finished. Just take a little breather. So we're back on it again tonight, and as you can see, by and large, it's mostly there and together. There were a few bolts that were an absolute swine, and I was just like, you know, like this, and that's when I knew that I was flagging, and I thought, oh, I can't be doing this. Anyway, tonight we're going to get it all put together. But there's also something else I want to talk to you about, and a lot of people would say to me, you shouldn't bring this up, but I'm going to. We checked, so you can probably see that it's on a lift, and we had a look at everything. Now, I love doing this. I love getting under the car 2 or 3 times a year, maybe more, and having a good old look at everything that's going on. That's in addition to all the servicing requirements that go on, things like greasing the trunnions, adjusting the brakes, and all the bits that go with it. And I only adjusted those brakes less than 2 months ago, so that must have been when I had a look at it, and there was nothing untoward going on. We've had it up on the ramp and we've had a look, and one of the wheel cylinders is now gently leaking. And so what we've decided is instead of driving it out of here today, we're going to have to do another rodeo on it on Friday morning and just get the brake changed as well, because that's really important, because on these it's single circuit braking, and I'm all about the safety aspect. I'm not going to cry if I don't drive this car for a few days, but I am going to cry if I drive it home and accidentally rear end somebody, because that'll be my fault and I will know that. But instead we're going to come back to it. So in today's video, you're not going to sadly see me drive away into the sunset as I had hoped, but that's okay. Now, I thought what I would do is I would get Ed's expertise on this. Now, Ed has been working with A-Series for, sorry to age you, Ed, horribly, but around 20 years, hence probably why he's part of the ADO restoration team. And so for things like the timing that I'm really no good at, that my knowledge is rubbish, I thought I would get Ed's expertise on it. Hauling stuff in, tightening bolts down, I can do that. Stuff like this, I think you need to really understand or be shown by somebody and really take it in. And it's just never stuck in my brain. And that's okay, because that's why we have people that tune engines and stuff, because that's their specialism. And you should always play to everybody's strengths in the equation. So let's carry on. Let's get this done. And let's try and get it started up by the end of today's video.
This engine from Iversale has been run up to temperature by themselves just to check that there's no water leaks or oil leaks or anything. So it's essentially a ready to fit unit. As Steph has explained in her previous video, this does come completely bare. So we've transferred the ancillaries and parts from her old engine onto this one. Now, one thing that we're going to do before we have a start up is we're just going to check everything, make sure that when we start this engine, it's going to start up first time. So timing checks, we've set it to top dead center. Now we're doing this before we put the radiator on because it just makes our lives slightly easier. So we've set our timing marks to top dead center on our crank pulley, made sure that it is compression on number 1, and the illumination ignition that is fitted works in a way that the tabs where the rotor arm is break the electronic circuit, and that essentially acts as your points opening and closing. So all we've done here is we've set it to pointing at where number 1 will be, and we've just made sure that one of these tabs on the distributor is just about to break through here, which is essentially our points beginning to open. and that will give us a basic start to get the car started. Once it's running, we'll get the timing light on it and we'll make sure that it is set up to specification. Might need a little tweak here and there depending on what fuel we're running. The other thing that we've done is we've just reset the carburettor back to factory settings. So we've wound our jet nut right up to the top and then 2 full turns down, and that will just give us a factory setting to get the car started. And again, we'll give that a little tweak as the engine gets running, and we can tune it to how we want it.
Now, I came back into the engine bay to do a few of the simple jobs, because here's the thing, even if like me, you're a bit of a novice, you can have a go at some of the basics. So for me, it was things like spark plugs, air filter housing, and all the other various bits and pieces. It was nice and easy to do. And here's the thing is, sometimes you might as well have a go at these things, and if you mess them up and you've got somebody with you that knows what they're doing, at least you've had a good go. Better to have a go and make a few mistakes than not have a go at all. Now it's down to the final hurdle, because we've got to get this front grille back on, and that is the final challenge, along with getting the front bumper on, of course, and then we've got to tackle that brake. But anyway, let's just focus on this engine today, because that's what we need to be getting sorted. Now, if you've watched this video and you're trying to do this yourself and you're thinking, oh blimey, it feels like a mountain, trust me, you can do this. You can definitely do this. Just allow yourself lots of time, and remember, we have put all the steps in the description box below. So I hope you've enjoyed some of the entertainment. I hope you've enjoyed watching what we do at a slightly faster speed, and now let's get us started up. Right, you all ready? Because I don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. Probably should make sure that my safety catches are off. Okay. Whew. Well, I don't know if you can hear it, but at least we know the fuel pump's working. Second time lucky? Hey, there we go. Fantastic. It'll sound a lot better once the choker's being pushed in, of course. Now listen, I know that you'd love to see a test drive, but here's the thing. I need to just do a few more checks before I head off, but we are heading down south now. Now, it's going to be a big old journey, but I think, well, if you're going to run in an engine that you've paid a considerable amount of money for, you might as well do the miles and have some fun. So wish us luck, because we are heading off. But until next time, when we're probably talking about how to run in an engine, because that's so important. If you don't get it right, you might as well not do it at all. Take care and drive safely.